Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near. One more time. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near. Welcome. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. I am Lisa Conger, your worship leader this morning. We're glad to have you with us. UUCS is a welcoming congregation and we appreciate your unique background, beliefs, or lifestyle. It is our mission to join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world, or in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. If you're one of our longtime members or have been here a short time or are visiting us for the first time today, we're delighted to have you. Welcome to everyone, especially our guest speakers who will introduce themselves later in the program, and welcome to those streaming with us and those Zooming with us. May I ask you to introduce yourselves and tell us where you're calling from?
Sure. Well, it's Terry Anderson from Edmonton. There's only, we have quality on Zoom this morning, not quantity. So I'm glad to be here. And we have a person who's called Owner, but they haven't said anything yet, so I'm not sure. A mystery, a Halloween guest, I guess, in costume, or at least not yet revealed. And Stephen.
Yes, Stephen Palmer from Woodbridge, Connecticut.
Great to have you. No spirits? No extra spirits? Okay. Well, we're glad you're here. Welcome. So please take a moment now to meet some other people and be sure to say hello to someone you haven't met yet. Thank you. You'll have a chance to talk with each other a little bit more after the service. We now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, and a beacon of hope to those in need, and it may reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it has been found. Oh, my fault. The gremlin spirit came into my... Okay. This is our opening reception. I have been a member of this church since 1989. I have always enjoyed these services, exploring why some folks decided to become UUs. There are always a diversity of reasons, but also threads in common. This morning we will hear from 3 members of our congregation, Barbara Nelson, Shane Gronholz, and Jennifer Calvert. Shortly after I became a member, so long ago, I wrote this poem entitled, "Come as You Are." God's hospitality beckons through the doorway of discovery at the house of blessing. Wipe your preconceived notions on the mat of forgetting and step lively into the hall of love. There are no stairs to climb, no basement steps to fear. You are finally and fully here in God's house. You do not have to believe a certain way or act in a certain manner. Just be who you really are, and you will see God's face shining from the hall mirror. Welcome.
Well, this indeed is Halloween weekend, and there are older roots, of course, to that holiday. The older name was Samhain. It is spelled Samhain, but that is not the pronunciation, Samhain. And I was doing some research, basically, on the calendars and seasons, and way back, there were considered to be 2 seasons, summer and winter, believe it or not. Spring and autumn are younger named seasons. And Samhain was the beginning of winter. It was considered the summer was finally gone by the end of October, and we were into the winter season. And it does seem to be in line this year because we had unseasonably warm weather until close to the very end of this month. We're going to sing Lady of the Seasons Laughter, and that is one of the few earth-based hymns in our hymnal. And the lady, of course, refers to the goddess. Please rise as you're willing and able. Lady of the seasons, laughter in the summer's voice be dear. When the winter follows after, teach our spirits not to fear. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady Mother of the generations, in whose love a life is worth, everlasting celebrations bring our labor safe to birth. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. Goddess of all time's progression, stand with us when we engage, hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our hearts and minds and who we want to wrap in our love and care. We kindle light this morning for Ukraine and for other troubled spots in the world. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here in our hearts this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. Those named aloud and those remembered in the silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world this hour, we hold in our community of compassion. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Actually, join me in a little more applause. Do you know that Maura first came to us on Halloween last year? That was her first date with us. Happy to have her. And I get to do the Time for All Ages today. I have always loved Halloween and loved jack-o'-lanterns. I don't know about you. How many of you have at least a pumpkin at home right now? How many of you actually carved a jack-o'-lantern this year? I wanted to carve one for today, and I don't know if you can see him up here. He's a very warty fellow, and he was very difficult to work with. I thought it would be fun to have one of those fancy ones, and they are hard as rocks. I was actually in this kitchen last night. It took me over an hour, and I tried to do a lid, and it wouldn't happen. So what little I could do is there. But I wanted to actually teach you a little song that I know. I've actually known this since I was quite young. My parents were both Depression kids, and they were both musical, actually, but there was no money for music lessons, etc. So they just did what they could with what they had. My dad played the harmonica, and I did later in her life teach my mother to play the piano a little bit, which she enjoyed. My dad also had a huge paper route. I mean, he would get up at 4:30 in the morning when he was 10, and he had the biggest paper route in Smelterville, Idaho. And he would deliver umpteen, I don't know how many hundreds of papers, because everybody was getting a paper at that time. And he delivered so well and so much that he won a prize, and he could pick the prize. And he picked a little concertina because he wanted to play music. And so we still have that in the family. But the other thing that he did was teach me songs when I was very, very small. I can still remember sitting on his lap and learning Silent Night. And he taught me a jack-o'-lantern song. And so I think it'll be up there on the screen, the lyrics, I think. And I will just sing it to you once, and then you can sing it with me a couple of times. It's pretty simple. Jack-o'-lantern, jack-o'-lantern, you are such a funny sight. As you sit there in the window looking out at the night. You were once a yellow pumpkin growing on a sturdy vine. Now you are a jack-o'-lantern, see your candlelight shine. Just climb on, don't worry about mistakes. Here we go. Jack-o'-lantern, jack-o'-lantern, you are such a funny sight. As you sit there in the window looking out at the night. You were once a yellow pumpkin growing on a sturdy vine. Now you are a jack-o'-lantern, see your candlelight shine. Oh, very well. And I actually do have a candle in that pumpkin, but I don't think it's very seeable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb. That was wonderful. I invite you now to our time of meditation in words and silence. Please find a comfortable, receptive posture. Take some deep breaths. Close your eyes if you wish, as I lead you into the silence with this poem by Toyohiko Kagawa. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. A prayer. I want to be ever a child. I want to feel an eternal friendship for the raindrops, the flowers, the insects, the snowflakes. I want to be keenly interested in everything, with mind and muscle ever alert, forgetting my troubles in the next moment. The stars and the sea, the ponds and the trees, the birds and the animals are my comrades. Though my muscles may stiffen, though my skin may wrinkle, may I never find myself yawning at life. Our reading is from the back of our hymnal, number 447, if you want to look at it, but it's not a responsive reading. It's by Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Nelson, and I've been here at Spokane Unitarian Church for 5 years. I moved from Saltwater, but I have to say, totally coincidentally, that Albert Schweitzer is also referenced in my readings today. So why am I here? My first real search to find a spiritual community, was when my father, an Air Force officer, was transferred to the Pentagon, and we moved to the DC area. I was in middle school and started attending Baptist church that was coincidentally down the street from where we lived. Stories about the works of missionaries in Africa, especially Albert Schweitzer, made a strong impression on me. I didn't find out until many years later he was a Unitarian, but sought out a church willing to support his medical mission in Africa. At the same time, I discovered a Sunday morning TV show coming in from a local Unitarian church. There, the seed of my Unitarianism was planted. I remember a lesson where the teacher asked the kids questions as he showed them a bowl of dirt. What would your mom think if you walked in the house tracking dirt all over her freshly mopped kitchen? Have you ever made mud pies in the yard after it was soaked by the rain? Was it fun? What about a farmer? What could he do with a field soaked by rain? Could he maybe plant some seeds in it? She listened carefully and patiently while the kids offered their answers. Dirt? Mud? Soil? They're different, but still the same, and it's all important. These images gave me a basic foundation of trying to look at the situations in different perspectives. This lesson stuck with me all these years. Looking at situations from different perspectives is a challenge easier to do at some times than others, even now. I started going to the Episcopal Church when we moved to Hawaii. I enjoyed the music and, honestly, the liturgy. even though I didn't buy it all. And when my children were small and we were living in Federal Way, I helped run the Vacation Bible School at the local Episcopal church and was on the bishop's committee. However, even then, I considered myself spiritual, but not religious. When I stopped attending after my divorce, only one couple from the church reached out to me to see how I was doing. Eventually, I started going to Saltwater Unitarian Church in Des Moines, Washington, and I found enrichment and friendship. I became a lay reader and joined chalice circles, which are small discussion groups. In 2013, an earthquake in Haiti occurred. My career in emergency management made me want to go, but I knew I didn't have the right skills. However, a year and a half later, I went there with a group of UUs from around the country. Our goal was to support, not tell them what to do. We saw a community of hardworking Haitians building villages on the Central Plateau, creating a new life for themselves. I was fortunate to go 2 more times as trip leader. We saw firsthand the demanding work of Haitians as what they did every day to build villages. They grew their own food and dedicated themselves to creating a better life for their families. My last trip included members from Saltwater UU Church, including the minister. I was excited to see how much progress had been made over the months that I was going there. I thought about that lesson from the UU Sunday School so many years ago. Dirt transformed by water into soil, growing food and nourishing the communities. In 2017, I retired and moved here to Spokane. 2 days after moving here, I attended my first demonstration at the Gathering Place. I listened to one of these speakers and thought, wow, his style is like a Baptist minister. Go figure. Many of you already know that Todd was once a Baptist minister. When it was over, I found him and introduced myself, and Todd greeted me with a huge hug. He said, I heard you were coming. Welcome. I've made purposeful efforts to get to know folks here. I became involved, I made friends, it felt right. Then came a different kind of earthquake, the UUGA in 2019, right here in Spokane. I remember sitting in sessions wondering if I was in the right place. Was I missing something? What is woke? Am I woke enough? Then something about Todd, a book he wrote. Who even had time to read it then? They did what to Todd? I was incensed. This was and is not what I believe a Unitarian is all about. Shock waves are still reverberating throughout the UU community, here and around the country. Then the pandemic, the chairs, no choir, a lone pianist, a lay reader, watching Todd in the sanctuary with his sermon speaking to a virtual audience. It was hard on all of us, but a fraction of how difficult it must have been for him. The double whammy of the unfair attacks and subsequent fallout, plus the pandemic. A lesser person would have left. He stood up. His strength and his resolve is why I'm here. We are coming back, slowly at first as COVID restrictions were lifted, now more fully. We are bringing back what was taken from us and expanding beyond what we once were. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the thrill of hearing the choir again. I do miss some of the people who are no longer here, but there are new faces. We are Unitarian Universalists, adhering to the 7, not 8 principles that first drew me and continued to guide me along the way. Thank you.
This is a first for me. I know you'll be gentle on me here. Yes, always. That's who we are. My name is Jennifer Calvert, and I've been attending this church for about 5 years. I've lived here in Spokane since the early 80s, but I never had a church home, and I think it's because I didn't realize one existed like this one. I grew up attending Sunday school at the Methodist and Presbyterian churches, and when I began to question their orthodox thinking and didn't find answers that satisfied my questions, I stopped attending them and no longer searched for a place to call home. I've always been sensitive to the world around me in terms of how humans treat each other and how humans have needs that so often go unmet, and how becoming an activist on behalf of making the world a better place and a livable place for all life on this planet is the most important work I and we can do. What I didn't see was how mainstream churches fit into the picture, and therefore how religion and social activism can and should intersect. I actually came to our UU church through my activism on behalf of Palestinian human rights. I met Myrta Ladich, one of our members, who had visited Palestine in about 2011 or 12, and hearing her speak of her experience and her knowledge led me to want to go there myself, which I did 3 times since, and follow Myrta's lead in spreading the word here in the U.S. Myrta passed away recently, which is a great loss to us all, but I try to carry on the work that she was passionate about and continue to be inspired by her dedication and great example. Then I met Barb Stubing and Linda Green, again, members of our church here, and together we started showing films that focus on human rights and social justice, and that morphed into meaningful movies. Pre-COVID, we presented the documentaries and discussion sessions at the Magic Lantern Theater. COVID happened, so until recently we went remote and online. Now we will be returning to the Magic Lantern, and we hope that you will see the notification of our events through the UU newsletter and join us if you can. So I discovered this church home through its involvement with social activism. And when I read the 7 principles and the 6 sources, I can easily feel again the feeling of I am home. The baseline belief in, quote, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations is just bedrock to me and my soul. Having respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part is truly the only way that we can live comfortably on this planet. I wore my activist uniform today. Our church has displayed a yard sign that proclaims our belief in these important principles, and when I saw it, I got online, and lo and behold, I was able to buy a t-shirt that matched the yard sign. This shirt has even more special significance to me. Let me explain. So, show you. This is my activist uniform. So here's the significance to me. I retired from teaching math at Ferris High School in 2009, and then I began substitute teaching in 6 area schools. I didn't have to buy new clothing for my new job because for those of you who haven't been in a public school lately, it's gotten pretty casual. That's my outfit for teaching. I had already been dressing in t-shirts and jeans for many years. So on the day after I got my new t-shirt in the mail, of course I had to wear it to school. I was in a classroom of kids who already knew me from the fact that I had subbed for their teacher a number of times. But it occurred to me to call their attention to my new shirt. I said, I have something I want to share with you. I'm coming out. You might imagine what they thought I was going to say, but I stood up and I said, I'm an activist. We had a little laugh about it, but honestly, I think I made a point that I hope will last with them for a while. I'm definitely a person who proudly defines my identity as an activist, and especially as a teacher in the school, I wanted to be a good example to the kids. Like one of the things that I used to do was during my planning period, when there was a blood drive at the school, I would go and give blood. And then I could, for the rest of the day, wear the little thing that said, I gave blood today, or kiss me, I gave blood, or whatever it was that said on it. Because I wanted to be a good example of what good humans do in this world to try to make a difference. Besides our church being a place that supports the principles and beliefs that are so important to my identity, which is serious business indeed, I truly appreciate the moments of lighthearted fun as well. Somehow I doubt that other churches were encouraged to sing about Peter Cottontail hopping down the bunny trail on Easter Sunday, like our music director Deb had us doing, and Bob Dylan and Beatles songs, whoa. And it's really fun to have a minister who's also a ventriloquist. He makes us laugh while making a point. That's so cool. So I'm a person who believes wholeheartedly in science and the scientific method. It means so much to me to attend a church that does not center a belief in God, but emphasizes human worth and human interaction. Folks in our church certainly can have differing beliefs about the existence of God or the meaning of God, but I appreciate not feeling pressured into aligning with those beliefs. I'm so thankful to have found this church that supports me in my activist efforts and supports us all to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shane Gronholz, and I didn't know if this was intentional, but we're all relatively new to this congregation. We've been coming here for about 4 years. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my background and what I've found here at Universalist Unitarian Church of Spokane. Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. I don't know the order. I grew up a pastor's kid. I sometimes say going into the ministry was the family business growing up because my grandpa, uncles, everybody was in the ministry, and not being a very creative person, that's what I always intended to do, was to become a minister, a pastor myself. So that was my lifelong dream as a child. If somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said I wanted to be a minister. I grew up in an evangelical church, and I went to Whitworth. I started studying Christian theology there, and that was my major. At the same time, I was really into C.S. Lewis's nonfiction as a high schooler, and so my mom, she said, you should take some philosophy classes. I think you'd really like that. And so I did, and I took one, and I loved it, and I continued taking philosophy classes, and by the end, I was very close to major in philosophy as well, so I just wound up double majoring in both theology and philosophy. Towards the end of my time at Whitworth, I started to have serious doubts about Christianity and the inerrant Word of God, which I did believe at the time. Sometimes I get a little defensive because, especially when I was still, when I'd go to my parents' church and they found out I was sort of having doubts, I got the sense that, it must be those philosophy classes you were taking. But it wasn't. It actually wasn't the philosophy. It was the theology classes. It was especially during Paul's letters. I was taking a class about Paul's letters from Roger Morlang, and it was a great class. And one of the things Roger Morlang did in his Bible classes was focus a lot on the history and the context of those scriptures. And I always knew, this is no secret, this is part of the story, that the Bible was written by humans but inspired by God. But learning so much about the man Paul and his life, it just really dawned on me in a way it hadn't before, like, wait a second, this was just a guy writing letters, and now we spend hours and hours and years and decades and centuries poring over these letters. What word did he use here? He used this same word here. He must have meant something. And it's like, no, he was just writing a letter. I had coffee with Brian Beggs this week, and he had the exact same experience in Roger Morlang's class. I thought that was really wild. The first time I'd heard about the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, I had a friend who was in that class with me and going through the same thing. He's now like a hardcore atheist, and he always blames his atheism on me. But he's like way more gung-ho about it. But he had... am I talking too loud into the mic? Oh, I am? Sorry. My wife says yes. Sorry, I'm loud. My friend Matt attended here during that time. He was like, well, I don't know about this Christianity thing. I'm going to check out the Unitarian church. And so he went, and I said, how did it go? And he was like, oh, it was good. There was something that was kind of bizarre. We sang "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." And I think it was because the man who wrote it had passed away. Is that right? Do you remember this?
Well, we were just doing it for fun for Christmas time.
Okay. So, I was like, oh, that's funny. But then when I came here and met Deb, I was like, actually, that sort of makes sense. That they would do that. So when we moved back here to Spokane after 12 years in Colorado, Stephanie came. She was curious, and she was like, I think you'd like it. So then I came the following week, and I did. I really liked it. What I discovered was a community of intellectually curious and intellectually humble people willing to question, willing to learn, to revise, to doubt. What I always had such a hard time with in my evangelical church was the certainty. And when I really started to doubt in earnest, if I expressed this to people, they would say, it's okay to doubt, it's okay to question. But I knew there was an unspoken caveat, as long as you come back to the one true faith. But you can't really meaningfully question if you know that it's that you will ultimately stay. I don't think that that's meaningful questioning. And so I love that every week, I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but that every week we say, may this flame be a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. And it's also why I've always loved this quote from Bertrand Russell, who says, the whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, but wiser people are so full of doubts. And so I like this place because it allows me to doubt. But ultimately, I'm here because of all of you. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get emotional. Because of the community and support and encouragement that I've gotten from all of you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We're glad you are part of our congregation, all of you. I guess it's him. I'm sorry. That gremlin is really a mess.
It's okay, Lisa. I feel like I must defend my choice of the Grinch song. If I'm remembering right now, I think that was the story that Todd was using at that time. And also, of course, you remember the point of that story, which is you become ungrinchy and you are caring toward people. But yes, I can understand how that may have struck a visitor as very strange. Somehow when we hear these, I love hearing these stories of why you're here. It just always, when I learned that we were going to have this service, I just couldn't wait, because I just love to hear everybody's way of getting here. And we have a little time, so I'm just going to talk for a little bit about how I got here. I was going to Pacific Lutheran University, church school, and doing some of the things that you did in terms of comparative religion and some stuff like that, which was interesting to me, and I too became more and more couldn't swallow things, And like you, Barbara, I enjoyed singing the liturgy, but I was very aware that I didn't believe it. I just couldn't go there. So at PLU, I became an atheist. And I was a lucky atheist because I was in the choir, and we would have convocations every day that the freshmen and sophomores were required to be at. We had assigned seats at that point in time at PLU. But I was lucky. I was in the choir, and we were always in the balcony. And so if we didn't want to hear if there was somebody religious or something, if some of us wanted to sneak out, we did. And I did that sometimes because I just didn't want to hear anymore, quite. So when I was home on spring break, I had some neighbors over in North Idaho that had seen the sign on the old Unitarian church on 8th. And that was when Rudy Gilbert was the minister, and he was fourscore against the Vietnam War, and so were my neighbors. They were unusual North Idaho neighbors. And they were going to come to the church. They decided to come to the church, and they were members of the church. They're both gone now. But they would drive the hour here and another hour back to come to this church, and got involved in this church. And they asked me if I wanted to go over spring break, and I said, okay. And the first thing I was impressed about was there were symphony musicians doing some of the music, and I went, oh, wow, you know. And Rudy Gilbert, by the way, had a beautiful radio announcer's voice, and he was wonderful to listen to, and I was really, good grief, you know, I was struggling at PLU belief-wise, and I was very attracted. And that planted a seed in the back of my mind, and when I got done with college and I was back in the area, I decided to come and visit the church, and so that's how I got involved. You got 4 stories for 3, right? Okay, so I picked this hymn, We Would Be One, because we are individuals, and yet this group is in solidarity, and I think that is so important. So please rise and sing We Would Be One with me. It's number 318 if you want to use a hymnal. Okay.
Our benediction today is by Dag Hammarskjöld. Each morning we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and give back. So be it. Amen. Blessed be. Shalom Aleikum and Shalom.